March 27, 1945. Chief Forward, Headquarters, Reims, France. General Omar Bradley sits at his desk, reviewing casualty reports from the Rhine crossing. The numbers are heavy, but expected. This is the final push into Germany. And every mile costs blood. Then Major Chester Hansen walks in. He's carrying a decoded field message, and his expression makes Bradley look up immediately. Hansen hands him the paper without a word. Bradley reads it once. Then again. His face goes white. "Get me Patton," Bradley says quietly. "Now." Because according to this message, 307 American soldiers are currently 60 miles behind German lines, on a mission nobody authorized. If you want to discover the untold stories of World War II that changed history, make sure to subscribe to WWII series, hit that like button, and drop a comment below telling us which general story you want to hear next. Now, let's get into what happened on that March day in 1945. Bradley stands and walks to the wall map. His hands are steady, but his jaw is tight. Task Force Baum. The name means nothing to him. He's never approved any operation with that designation. He traces the front line with his finger, 3rd Army positions at Aschaffenburg, freshly captured. Then he moves east, 60 miles east, to a small town called Hammelburg. Major Hansen stands beside him, waiting. "This can't be right," Bradley says. "We don't have any operations that deep." "3rd Army confirms it, sir," Hansen replies. "Task Force Baum departed 0600 hours this morning." Bradley does the math in his head. It's now 2 p.m. That's 8 hours. 60 miles in 8 hours. Through enemy territory. Bradley looks at Hansen. That's 7.5 miles per hour, while fighting their way through German-occupied territory. He turns back to the message. 307 men, 16 tanks, 27 half-tracks. This isn't a reconnaissance patrol. This isn't a diversionary raid. This is a full armored column driving through the German rear like they own the place. Task Force what? Bradley says again. "I never approved this. Who authorized a raid 60 miles behind enemy lines?" Hansen pauses, just for a second. But Bradley catches it. "General Patton, sir." The room goes silent. Bradley stares at the map. Between Aschaffenburg and Hammelburg, there are 2 full Wehrmacht divisions, scattered SS units, supply columns, rear echelon troops, thousands of German soldiers. And somewhere in the middle of all that, 307 Americans are driving east in broad daylight. "Get him on the line," Bradley says. Immediately, because Bradley knows something nobody else does yet. He knows that Hammelburg isn't just any prisoner of war camp. Lieutenant Colonel John Waters, Patton's son-in-law, is imprisoned there. And if Patton launched an unauthorized raid 60 miles behind enemy lines, Bradley knows exactly why. 2:30 p.m. The secure telephone line crackles to life. Patton's voice comes through from 3rd Army headquarters in Frankfurt. He sounds relaxed, almost cheerful. "Brad, what can I do for you?" "George," Bradley says slowly. "What the hell is Task Force Baum?" There's a pause. Not long. Maybe 2 seconds, but it's there. "An armored raid," Patton replies. "We're hitting a POW camp at Hammelburg. Liberating our boys. In and out. You sent 300 men 60 miles behind enemy lines without clearing it with me or Eisenhower? It's a tactical operation within my army sector, Brad. I don't need permission for tactics." Bradley closes his eyes. He's known George Patton for years. He knows how this works. Patton operates in the gray areas of military authority, always pushing, always testing boundaries. But this isn't a gray area. This is black and white. 60 miles isn't tactics, George. That's strategy. That's suicide. You're sending a company-sized force through 2 German divisions. They're fast. They're armored. They'll be in and out before the Krauts know what hit them. And when they get cut off? Bradley's voice is rising now. When they run out of fuel 30 miles behind enemy lines with liberated POWs who can't fight? Then they fight their way out. That's what armored cavalry does. Bradley takes a breath. He needs to say this carefully. "George, John Waters is at Hammelburg, isn't he?" The pause is longer this time. "I have 900 American officers in that camp, Brad. Waters is one of them. This isn't about 900 officers. You're risking 307 men to get your son-in-law back. I'm executing a legitimate military operation to liberate American prisoners of war. Ike's going to crucify you for this." Patton's voice hardens. "Let him try. Baum's already halfway there." Click. The line goes dead. Patton has hung up. Bradley stands there, phone in hand, staring at nothing. Then he puts the receiver down and turns to Hansen. "Get me Supreme Headquarters. I need to speak with General Eisenhower." While Bradley makes that call, something is happening 300 miles east. Something the Allied command won't fully understand until it's too late. By 4 p.m., German radio traffic explodes. Wehrmacht signals intelligence is picking up frantic communications across the entire 3rd Army sector. American armor has been spotted deep behind the front lines. Not a patrol, not a scouting party, a full combat force. Tanks, half-tracks, infantry moving east at impossible speed. At German 7th Army headquarters, staff officers crowd around maps. They're trying to make sense of the reports. American armor at Gemminden. American armor at Bergzen. American armor approaching Hammelburg. The reports trace a line 60 miles long, straight through German-held territory. A Wehrmacht major updates the situation map with shaking hands. "Sir," he says to his commanding officer, "if these reports are accurate, the Americans have achieved a breakthrough. This is the spearhead of a major offensive." German units start pulling back from the front. Reserves are mobilized. Entire formations shift east to counter what they believe is an American penetration of their lines. Except there is no breakthrough. There is no offensive. There are just 307 men, getting deeper and deeper into German territory, and they have no support coming behind them. At SHAEF headquarters, Bradley's call reaches Eisenhower. The Supreme Commander is in a meeting, but when his aide tells him Bradley is on the line with an urgent situation, Eisenhower takes the call immediately. "He did what?" Eisenhower's voice carries through the closed door. Staff officers in the outer room glance at each other. They've heard Eisenhower angry before, but this is different. This is cold fury. Bradley explains the situation. 307 men, 60 miles behind enemy lines. No authorization, no support, and Patton's son-in-law is in the target POW camp. Eisenhower goes silent. According to those who were in the room, it's the longest 10 seconds of the war. When he speaks again, his voice is controlled, but barely. "Can we support them? Can we push through?" "Not without committing the entire 4th Armored Division," Bradley says. "And that disrupts the entire Rhine offensive. We'd have to pull units from the main advance. Then Patton just killed 300 men for nothing." But what's happening on the ground is even worse than Bradley fears. 6 p.m. Task Force Baum reaches Hammelburg. Captain Abraham Baum, the task force commander, has pushed his men harder than any unit in the war. They've fought through 3 German roadblocks. They've bypassed 2 Wehrmacht garrisons. They've driven through the night and through the day. And somehow, impossibly, they've made it. The POW camp is designated Off-Flag 13B. It holds approximately 1,500 American and Allied officers. The guards are mostly older Wehrmacht soldiers, garrison troops. When American tanks appear on the horizon, confusion breaks out. Some guards run, some try to organize a defense. Most just stand there, trying to understand how American armor got this deep into Germany. Captain Baum's tanks smash through the perimeter fence. American prisoners pour out of the barracks, cheering, crying, mobbing the vehicles. 1,500 men suddenly free. It's chaos, it's jubilation, and it's a disaster, because Task Force Baum only has vehicles for 300 men. Lieutenant Colonel John Waters, Patton's son-in-law, the man this entire operation was designed to rescue, steps forward. He's been a prisoner since February 1943, captured in Tunisia. He's senior American officer in the camp, and he tries to organize the situation. He approaches a group of confused German guards, attempting to negotiate their surrender, trying to prevent more bloodshed. A shot rings out. Waters drops. He's hit in the buttocks and hip. The bullet tears through muscle and bone. He's bleeding badly. He can't walk. He definitely can't travel. The secret objective of the mission, the whole reason for this raid, fails in an instant. Captain Baum makes a decision that will haunt everyone involved. He loads 300 freed prisoners onto his vehicles. He leaves medical personnel to care for Waters and the other wounded. And he tells the remaining 1,200 prisoners to follow on foot if they can. Then Task Force Baum turns west and begins the return journey. It's 6:30 p.m. They've been behind enemy lines for 12 hours, and every German unit in the sector now knows exactly where they are. At that exact moment, Task Force Baum makes a decision that will haunt Patton forever. Instead of taking the same route back, a route they know is clear, they attempt a different path. Captain Baum hopes it will be less heavily defended. It's a reasonable tactical decision. But in war, reasonable decisions can still be fatal. By 10 p.m., the task force is moving through darkness. The tanks are running low on fuel. Ammunition is depleted from the day's fighting. The liberated POWs are exhausted, cramped on vehicles designed for combat, not transport. And German forces are converging from every direction. Near the village of Hellrich, 35 miles from American lines, it happens. German tanks appear on the ridgeline. Wehrmacht infantry emerge from the woods. The task force is surrounded. They try to break through. They fight for 3 hours in the darkness. Tanks burn, half-tracks explode. Men die in the same territory they just liberated. At midnight, Captain Baum makes the final calculation. They're out of fuel, they're almost out of ammunition. They can't break through. He gives the order to scatter. Every man for himself. Try to reach American lines on foot. Most don't make it, because the shooting at Hammelburg isn't over. It's just beginning. March 28, 1945. 12th Army Group Intelligence Center. The reports come in fragments. Radio intercepts, German communications, reconnaissance. No contact with Task Force Baum since 2200 hours. 3rd Army G2 adds to the picture. German radio traffic indicates major engagement vicinity Hullrich. Multiple enemy units involved. 4th Armored Division sends its assessment. Task Force Baum considered lost, presumed destroyed. The numbers start coming in over the next 48 hours. 32 men killed in action, 32 wounded. Over 200 captured and back in German POW camps. Out of 307 men who departed Aschaffenburg, only 35 make it back to American lines. All 16 tanks are destroyed or captured. All 27 half-tracks are lost. The freed POWs? Recaptured by the Germans within 24 hours. They're marched back to camps, right back where they started. At 3rd Army headquarters, Patton's Chief of Staff, General Hobart Day, moves through the command post with a single message to every staff officer. Keep this off the radio. If the press gets this, but the press will get it. They already are. War correspondents are asking questions. How did an American task force get 60 miles behind enemy lines? Who authorized it? What was the objective? And why are there rumors that Patton's son-in-law was in the camp? German Wehrmacht after-action reports tell their own story. American armored raid repulsed. Approximately 300 prisoners taken. Enemy objective unclear. Raid assessed as reconnaissance in force, possibly diversionary. American forces suffered complete tactical defeat. In one of history's most futile victories, Task Force Baum successfully penetrated 60 miles behind enemy lines, liberated a POW camp, and achieved absolute tactical surprise. The cost is catastrophic. The gain is zero. Captain Abraham Baum himself is captured. During German interrogation, he's asked about the raid's purpose. According to declassified records, Baum tells them, "I was told this was a raid with strategic importance. It was supposed to be in and out. Nobody told me we'd be 60 miles behind enemy lines with no support and no way home." Lieutenant Colonel John Waters survives his wounds, but he's still a prisoner. He'll remain in German captivity until April 6th, 10 days from now, when the regular American advance reaches Hammelburg. He would have been freed without a single additional casualty, without a single additional death. The raid didn't save him, it just killed 32 men trying. March 30th, 1945. Chief Headquarters. Eisenhower's office. Patton has been summoned from 3rd Army. He arrives in his immaculate uniform, twin revolvers on his belt, 4 stars gleaming. He walks into Eisenhower's office, expecting a conversation. What he gets is a reckoning. Eisenhower is standing behind his desk. He doesn't return Patton's salute. "Sit down, George." Patton draws himself up. "I prefer to stand." I said sit down. Patton sits. Eisenhower walks around the desk. He's holding a folder. After-action reports. Casualty figures. Intelligence assessments. He drops it on the desk in front of Patton. "You sent 307 men on an unauthorized mission 60 miles behind enemy lines. We've confirmed 32 dead, 32 wounded, over 200 captured. Barely 10% made it back." Eisenhower's voice is absolutely level. "And for what, George? For what?" "To liberate American POWs," Patton replies. "It was a calculated risk. Your son-in-law was in that camp." Pause. "Among 900 other American officers," Patton says. "Did you think I wouldn't find out? Did you think Bradley wouldn't tell me the real reason you launched this personal rescue mission? It was a legitimate military operation." "It was a disaster, George!" "And it was personal. Don't lie to me." Patton's voice rises. "My son-in-law has been rotting in that camp for months. I had the capability to get him out. You had the capability to kill 300 men trying, and you damn near did." The silence that follows is absolute. Outside the office, staff officers freeze at their desks. They can't hear the words, but they can hear the tone. This is not a normal command discussion. Eisenhower walks to the window. When he speaks again, his voice is quieter, but somehow more devastating. "George, I have defended you through Africa, through Sicily, through the slapping incidents, through every controversy you've created. But this?" He turns back to face Patton. "You used your command authority to launch a personal mission. You lied to Bradley. You risked hundreds of lives for one man, your family. We liberated 1,500 prisoners, who were recaptured." Eisenhower slams his hand on the desk. "The camp was liberated by the regular advance 3 weeks later, exactly as it would have been without your stunt. You accomplished nothing except getting good men killed. Patton's shoulders sag. For the first time in the conversation, he looks defeated. Waters was wounded in the raid, Patton says quietly. Shot while negotiating surrender. He nearly died. Eisenhower stops. I know, they stand there. The supreme commander of Allied forces in Europe and his most brilliant, most infuriating field commander. Between them lies the wreckage of Task Force Baum. 32 dead, 32 wounded, 200 captured. And for what? Eisenhower walks back to his desk. He sits down. He looks at Patton for a long moment. Then he says the words that will define their relationship for the rest of the war. George, you're the best field commander I have. You can do things with an army nobody else can. But I swear to God, if I could find a way to win this war without you, I'd relieve you today. This is it. This is the breaking point. Throughout World War II, Eisenhower has tolerated Patton's insubordination. His recklessness, his political disasters, the slapping incidents that nearly ended his career, the inflammatory speeches, the boundary-pushing operations. All of it. Because Patton wins battles. Because when Eisenhower needs an army to move faster, strike harder, exploit deeper than doctrine says is possible, Patton delivers. But Hammelburg crosses the line. It isn't tactical genius. It isn't aggressive leadership. It's personal, and it costs American lives. Eisenhower's words reveal the impossible position he faces. He needs Patton to win the war, but he can barely control him. It's the ultimate statement of Patton's value and his toxicity, delivered in one sentence. If I could find a way to win this war without you, I'd relieve you today. Patton doesn't respond. There's nothing to say. He stands, salutes, and walks out. The meeting is over, but Patton is not relieved. He will not be removed from command, because Eisenhower's statement is true in both directions. If he could win without Patton, he would. But he can't. The war in Europe has weeks left, maybe days, and Eisenhower needs every advantage. Patton is an advantage even now. Even after this, the final accounting of Task Force Baum tells the story in numbers. 307 men deployed, 32 killed in action, 32 wounded, over 200 captured as prisoners of war, 35 returned to American lines, an 11% survival rate, 16 tanks lost, 25 tanks, half-tracks destroyed. Total tactical gain, 0. Lieutenant Colonel John Waters survives his wounds. On April 6, 1945, exactly 10 days after the raid, the 14th Armored Division reaches Hammelburg during the regular Allied advance. Waters is liberated along with all the other prisoners who were recaptured after Task Force Baum's attempt. He would have been freed without the raid, without the deaths, without any of it. Patton is ordered to submit written reports justifying the operation. It's a humiliating requirement, never imposed on him before. He complies, but his reports are defensive, contradictory. He claims the raid was to disrupt German communications. He claims it was to liberate a significant number of POWs. He claims Task Force Baum was adequately sized for the mission. None of it holds up under scrutiny. Years later, after the war, General Omar Bradley writes in his memoir, Hammelburg was Patton's greatest failure of the war, not because it failed, but because it never should have been attempted. It was the one operation where personal interest clouded his judgment, and men died for it. Hammelburg becomes Patton's dark masterpiece, a perfect crystallization of his brilliance and his fatal flaw. He could conceive operations no other commander dared imagine. He could inspire men to achieve the impossible. His Third Army moved faster, hit harder, and exploited deeper than any other Allied formation. But he could never separate mission from ego, duty from personal desire. The rules that applied to everyone else never quite applied to George Patton until they did. The raid proves that even genius commanders have limits. Patton could bend rules, ignore doctrine, and rewrite tactics. His entire career was built on pushing beyond what others thought possible. But he couldn't bend reality. 60 miles behind enemy lines with 307 men. Wasn't aggressive leadership. It was arithmetic that didn't work. You cannot will success into existence when the numbers fundamentally don't add up. On March 28, 1945, while Task Force Baum was being destroyed near Holrich, Eisenhower sent a coded message to General George Marshall, Army Chief of Staff in Washington. The telegram was classified immediately. It remained classified for 30 years. When it was finally declassified in 1975, it contained these words: Patton has just conducted an unauthorized raid deep behind enemy lines. Results: tactical failure, heavy casualties. Reason: personal. I cannot relieve him. The war effort requires him. But God help me, I wish it didn't. That's the price of genius in war. You need it desperately, even when it terrifies you. Even when it kills your own men. Even when you know, absolutely know, that the same brilliance that wins battles can also destroy them. Task Force Baum remains one of the most controversial operations of World War II. Not because it failed. Lots of operations failed, but because it never should have happened. Because it was born from personal motivation disguised as military necessity. Because 32 men died and over 200 were captured, and the objective they died for was achieved 10 days later without firing a shot. Eisenhower never publicly criticized Patton for Hammelburg. He couldn't afford to. The alliance between them was too important, the war too close to ending. But in private, in that office on March 30, 1945, he delivered the most devastating assessment one general can give another. You're the best I have. But if I could do this without you, I would. That's not just about Hammelburg. That's about everything Patton represented. The brilliance and the madness, the victories and the controversies, the genius and the fundamental inability to be controlled. Eisenhower needed him, hated needing him, and couldn't change it. The war in Europe ended 5 weeks later. Patton's Third Army was there at the finish, still driving east, still moving faster than anyone thought possible, still winning, because that's what Patton did. He won, even when the cost was unbearable. Even when the reasons were wrong, he won. But Task Force Baum didn't win. Those 307 men didn't win. They drove 60 miles into history, liberated a camp, and died for a mission that succeeded 10 days later without them. That's their legacy. That's what happens when personal stakes override military judgment. That's what Eisenhower meant when he said he'd relieve Patton if he could, because genius without judgment is just courage without purpose. And in war, that gets people killed. If this story revealed something about leadership and the cost of personal ambition in wartime that you didn't know before, do us a favor. Subscribe to WWII series, hit that like button, and tell us in the comments which untold World War II story you want us to cover next. There are thousands of stories like this, buried in classified files and forgotten memoirs. We're bringing them to light, one video at a time. Thanks for watching, and remember, history isn't just about the victories, it's about the costs.